All right, ladies and gentlemen, MrSotko here. Welcome back to the channel. Got another, oh boy, what did Craig Wright do now for you? And it just gets better every time. I really love it. I think it's hilarious. It's all just good fun. So we have yet another just mind-boggling Craig Wright claim, and afterwards I'm going to talk about the correlation of the stock market in cryptocurrency. And it seems like in 2020 we have actually realized the correlation between Bitcoin and the stock market. And before 2020, 2019 and back, we really haven't seen any kind of correlation. If the stock market goes up, Bitcoin doesn't necessarily go up, etc. But now we're starting to, and I kind of want to just make light of that, I suppose. But we have this brain buster here. Craig S. Wright claims to own Mt. Gox's stolen Bitcoin in latest letter. If you just now recently got into cryptocurrency and you don't know what Mt. Gox was, it was an early Bitcoin exchange and probably the most important of all exchange hacks in the crypto sphere. Not that it was the biggest exchange. I think there actually has been bigger exchange hacks in terms of total volume of Bitcoin or other coins. But Mt. Gox happened in, I believe it was 2013 or 2014, when a lot of people had a lot more Bitcoin, and Bitcoin's price was really just starting to take off. So if Mt. Gox had never happened, we would actually have a lot more Bitcoin millionaires, etc., out there in the crypto world than we do today. So it was extremely important because it was at a time when Bitcoin's price was rising and everybody actually had quite the volume of Bitcoin to be trading. So Craig Wright's latest claim accidentally tied him to an early exchange hack. Now, I don't know if he's just claiming these at random because he's happened to have a lot of Bitcoin in them. I don't believe these two addresses that I'm about to talk about were actually in the Bitcoin Tulip Trust to begin with, but now he's claiming these ones too, and you'll see why this is a problem in just a moment. So Craig Wright has claimed two more Bitcoin addresses as part of his dubious efforts to be recognized as Satoshi Nakamoto. One of the addresses holds a Bitcoin stolen from Mt. Gox, meaning that Wright has inadvertently tied himself to a crypto crime, and it's unlikely that Wright owns the address or the stolen funds. He claimed ownership of two more Bitcoin addresses in his latest legal filing. One of these addresses, widely known as the 1FEEX address, or the 1FEEX address, which is that's just how it starts of the Bitcoin address, contains funds stolen from Mt. Gox in 2011. Was the Mt. Gox in 2011? I actually don't remember the year precisely. Why did Wright claim stolen Bitcoin? Who knows? Wright aims to prove that he is Bitcoin creator Satoshi Nakamoto, which is a highly dubious claim in and of itself because he has never been able to prove it. As evidence, Wright often claims to own early Bitcoin addresses with substantial balances. The 1FEEX address with the stolen Mt. Gox funds meets both conditions as it originally received funds in March 2011, and it currently has a balance of 79,900 Bitcoin. Of course, by claiming that address, Craig S. Wright has also implicitly admitted to being involved in the Mt. Gox theft of 2011. Wright's letter makes no mention of Mt. Gox at all. According to that letter, the 1FEEX address belongs to an address that is part of the Tulip Trust, a group of companies that allegedly control early Bitcoin funds. So now we have this Tulip Trust, which is this group of companies, and I actually tried to look up the Tulip Trust LLC company, and you can't really find anything on it. If you just Google it, it's really difficult. You get like these really vague like corporate filings of like what they're supposed to be, and it just doesn't make sense. So now we have this magic Tulip Trust. This is early Bitcoin fund. Sure, why not, right? Because that's a thing, right? Wright naturally intends to recover those funds. It is improbable that Craig S. Wright owns the 1FEEX address, which, yeah, probably not. But it's not good. So this is basically like, in a nutshell, a good analogy would be like you robbed a bank, and then you were like driving away from the police and you went off-roading, and like your Jeep that was off-roading and the police are behind you, and you hit a bump and like out flies the suitcase that you just stuffed all the money that you stole and all the jewels or whatever, and it goes flying and the police notice it. And then like 10 years later, you come out to the police station and you're like, hey, I heard you guys have a suitcase that belongs to me that you happened to find like 10 years ago. It's silver and it's big and it happened to contain $10 million. And then the police would look at you, go, and they'd put handcuffs on you immediately. And then it just doesn't make any sense. Like, none of this. It's amazing. It really is amazing. And this is an actual true filing. This is like a true claim. We have the document here. On the next page we'll go to. So Wright has claimed hundreds of other Bitcoin addresses in the past, but other Bitcoin users came forward, and I've shown videos of that, of them coming forward and signing the messages with their keys, which basically just says, F you, Craig Wright, you don't own this. And then later they basically changed their story because so many people came forward and moved Bitcoin or basically signed a message in some way. And then basically Craig Wright and gang changed their story to say that wasn't the real list that we submitted to a legal court, right? So basically, like, you submitted a fake document to the court. That's basically what you're saying. And that the real list we have is secret, right? So we basically just submitted nonsense to the court, to like an actual court of the United States, like a court of law. We just submitted nonsense, and our real one is in secret, our real list of addresses. Just it's amazing. It's like flat earthers. It's like anytime you have like, okay, well, if the earth was flat, then blah blah blah, and they just make up something like, no, it's got a ring of ice around it, and you're like, oh yeah, because there's a ring of ice around the planet. Sure, okay. It's just like no matter what you come out with, they just come out with some ridiculous thing that's even actually kind of hard for you to combat, right? Like you can't even prove that there's a secret list, right? So it's just amazing. This means that he can't sign messages or transfer money from the Bitcoin addresses. So basically, he says that he lost the keys to the one FEEX address during a theft in February. Well, that is ironic, right? It's like calling the police when your drugs were stolen. You're like, hey, police, like, my drugs were stolen. I was wondering if you guys can recover my drugs, right? I'm a drug dealer, and somebody broke in, took all my drugs. I was wondering if you guys could come over and maybe do an investigation and find my drugs. And the police are going to go, yeah, probably shouldn't have said that. You know, so basically he lost the keys to this one FEEX address that has 79,000 stolen Bitcoin from Mt. Gox. So he lost a stolen, oh man, it keeps going. So there's no evidence that anyone stole the address from Wright, but his argument does shift the burden of proof in a different direction. Sure does. The fact that Wright has accidentally tied himself to a crime will damage his already abysmal reputation. Can it be, though? Can it go lower? Can it really, truly, though? I find that hard to believe within the crypto community. However, that does not necessarily mean that the news will have any impact on court cases that he's involved in, or that it will prevent him from attempting to file future lawsuits. Of course it won't, because it's Craig Wright. Some commenters have suggested suing Wright for claiming to own stolen funds, but it isn't clear that doing so would be practical. No, that would not be very pragmatic at all, because how are you going to prove that he got Bitcoin stolen from an address that was stolen from Mt. Gox, or basically Bitcoin that was stolen from Mt. Gox? Makes no sense. Though Wright's past legal cases have not ended in his favor, he has not shown an interest in backing down, meaning that this controversy could continue for years to come. Oh God, I hope so. It's so good. I want it to end so I can really see like what the ending or outcome of all this is. It's probably nothing. Like, you know what the outcome of all this is? You guys know what the outcome of all this court case and, like, the Kleiman case and 1 million Bitcoin and him taking the one FEEX address, or at least claiming it. You know what you're going to get in the end? In the end, you're just going to get you're pissed in the mouth, right? It's just a big man is just going to stand and piss all over your face. That's what we're all going to get out of this, is absolutely nothing and pissed in our faces. That's it. That's basically it. So moving on to the court document here. So this is his address. This is his like lawyers, and it's to Blockstream. Blockstream. So basically, Blockstream is a group of developers who create third-party solutions for Bitcoin. So it's to Blockstream. So keep that in the back of your mind, right? This is to Blockstream, who apparently these lawyers, or maybe Craig Wright, and if Craig Wright was Satoshi Nakamoto, he would know that Blockstream is not in charge of any of this in any way, shape, or form. So it just destroys his credibility every single time. Like, around every single corner, it just annihilates his credibility. So we act for Tulip Trading Limited, again, which is like some company. I dare you to Google Tulip Trading Limited and try and figure out who these people are and what they do exactly. It'll be a good challenge for you, I promise. We also act for Dr. Craig Wright, the individual behind the pseudonym Satoshi Nakamoto, the creator of Bitcoin. That's good. That's a good one. Tulip owns the unsplit Bitcoin in the following addresses. How? How does this Tulip Trading Limited own this Bitcoin anyway? Who are these people? Like, is it a group that mine together? Is it a bunch of people whose address is this? No company owns like an what are you talking about? It doesn't make sense. I mean, I guess a company can own a Bitcoin address, but like you owned it in 2011. So Tulip Trading Limited was around in 2011. Is that what you're trying to say, or were they formed later? And then if they were formed later, then it's definitely not theirs. What does this mean? It doesn't mean anything. It's like saying make America great again, or like political slogans like yes we can. They don't mean anything. It doesn't mean anything. It just means whatever you think it means. So Tulip owns the following unsplit Bitcoin in the following addresses, and one is that one Feeks address, and then the other one is just some whatever. So the one Feeks address contains 79,000 some odd Bitcoin, and then the 12 IB address contains 31,000 Bitcoin. So it's just theirs, right? It's just theirs. Like we claim these addresses, and we'll send it to Blockstream, right? As if Blockstream gives a damn, or as if Blockstream can do anything about this. It just makes no sense. It makes no sense at all. Like, who are these people? They know nothing. They obviously know nothing about Bitcoin. So what are they doing trading Bitcoin? Tulip Trading Limited? They know nothing about Bitcoin. And you'll see why in just a moment here. On or around 5th of February 2020, access to and control over those addresses was stolen during a hack on Dr. Wright's computer network. So basically, Dr. Wright owned one Feeks. If that's the case, then he basically owns a ton of stolen Bitcoin, like 79,900 Bitcoin stolen. That's basically what this means from lawyers. This is a problem. This is a problem. Is anybody going to like go forward with this? I don't think anybody can, because like there's nothing you can do. It's Bitcoin. The private keys to those addresses were stored in an encrypted file on the network. I guess it wasn't so encrypted, right? I guess it was some pretty bad encryption, huh? Right? As was part of the information required to open that file. I guess that wasn't encrypted either, huh? Or it was, but it was some pretty strong encryption, huh? Both the encrypted file and related information were stolen during the hack and deleted from the network. So, well, you got some pretty bad security going on there, because if it was encrypted, boy, that would be hard to decrypt. It would take quite a while, right? So you were just infected for that long. That makes a lot of sense. This makes a lot of sense. Tulip and Dr. Wright believe that, as those responsible for Bitcoin Core blockchain, you have the duties in relation to transactions on that blockchain. Wow. In circumstances where you have... Is this a joke? I think it must be funny to somebody. This has to be a joke. Is this real? This can't be real. We're on the... Anyway, sorry, I got thrown off. You have duties in relation to transactions on that blockchain. No, they don't. In circumstances where you have notice of the interests involved, including in particular avoiding illegitimate transactions being entered in the blockchain, where you have notice of the same. As a result, we hereby put you on notice that as above, Tulip, the legal owner of Bitcoin Core in the 1 Feeks and 12 addresses, Tulip intends to recover control over the addresses. I'm sure that's a thing, right? That's never happened in the history of Bitcoin, but okay. And Blockstream, they're acting like Blockstream are like the developers of Bitcoin. Like they're the developers. Like they have the power to like stop transactions and just give back Bitcoin and stuff. This is a real document. I'm pretty sure this is a real document. I haven't seen anybody to say on the contrary. This is a legitimate document. These people seriously think that Blockstream has the ability to just give these coins back. Number 3, any movement of the Bitcoin Core in the address would constitute a contravention on Tulip's ownership of the rights to Bitcoin Core in the 1 Feeks and 12 addresses. Number 4, any assistance or other action or inaction by any party in connection with the movement of the Bitcoin Core involved in or connected to the Bitcoin Core blockchain would also constitute a contravention of Tulip's ownership and the rights to the Bitcoin Core in those particular addresses. They don't have any control. Nobody does. Even if Satoshi Nakamoto walked through my door right now and sat right next to me and I said, "Can you get this Bitcoin back for him?" Satoshi Nakamoto would say, "No, you're dumb for even thinking that. That's not a possibility." Even Satoshi Nakamoto, the creator of Bitcoin, could not do that. Like once Bitcoin is running, That's it. I mean, you could fork away and like give those back, right? But then it's going to be a totally different fork, and nobody's gonna like go after that fork, right? Everyone is going to stay on the Bitcoin Core fork. So it's not possible. You'd have to like create new Bitcoin by like making a whole fork. It's just not possible. And anybody that thinks it is, you got a lot to learn about Bitcoin. Finally, Tulip owns the right to the name Bitcoin and the Bitcoin database. So if they own the right to Bitcoin and Bitcoin database, then why are they asking Blockstream to stop these transactions or to recover the control over the addresses, right? If they own the right to the name and the Bitcoin database, right? If they're so powerful, why? It has to be a joke. Like, somebody has to be laughing. I don't understand. Like, anybody, like, you don't know anything about Bitcoin if you made this letter, and I think I'm done reading it. That's all I got for you on that one. But moving on, let me just show you guys something here that is really only happening in 2020. And Bitcoin appears to be correlated with the stock market. Now, there might be intraday or intra-week ups and downs in Bitcoin that have nothing to do with the stock market. That's a thing. A whale might come along and buy a bunch or sell a bunch, okay? So that's a thing too. So don't take that into take that into consideration, I suppose. But take a look at this. So 5 days ago, the Dow was at like 27,000, and we had this big dip back to 25, and this was 5 days ago. On or around June 11th is when it started to dip. You could argue about the most of the way through June 10th as the trading days for the stock market stop. It's not like Bitcoin where it's just constantly trading all like 24/7. So at the end of the day, it just started dumping at the beginning of June 11th. And if we go to the Bitcoin chart, we look 7 days back, June 10th, June 11th here, we see this massive dip. And it's not massive. It's $600 or so off of Bitcoin and where we are now. So we were nearly at 10,000, and then this dip happened. Then we were also at the all-time high. So let's go back to the all-time high of the stock market, and that was about 29,000. It was nearly 30,000. And that happened around, that dump started around February 21st, 24th, somewhere around there. And we can see that in Bitcoin too. If we just go to the year to date, we might actually have to just like go ahead and refresh our Bitcoin chart here and go to our year to date. And if we go back to, when that happened, we see February 21st or 1st or so, and it was a bit of a lag time before that. So we've seen the stock market, and I think this is where it began to correlate with the stock market, because this was the big drop. We went from 29,000 to 19,000. It was the biggest drop in the history of the stock market in terms of points. So 10,000 point drop in a matter of a few weeks, and we see that too with Bitcoin, like right here. And this is when I started to realize there was a definite correlation to Bitcoin and the stock market. So, if we see, us go back to 27,000 or 29,000 Dow, and if you want to use NASDAQ or whatever, I suppose it would probably show very similar. That there's a bit of a lag time. You can see that there's a little bit of a lag time, and Bitcoin catches up. So people see the stock market go down, then they look at Bitcoin, and then Bitcoin starts to go down and sell as well, as people start to panic there as well. And it really makes sense, when there's a massive drop in the stock market, we always wonder, like, is Bitcoin going to go up? Are people going to take their money out of the stock market and put it into Bitcoin? Or are people going to sell their Bitcoin so that they have money to stay afloat when the stock market is dumping? And maybe they'll put it into the stock market. Who knows? Like, which way was it going to go? And that question went unanswered for quite a while. And I'd like to argue that it is correlated now and not uncorrelated. So it is not an uncorrelated asset, as a lot of people were arguing, because people were like, okay, well, Bitcoin is slow. It's not a very good currency. It's not a very good store of value in a lot of ways. I very much enjoy Bitcoin, and I'm not trying to bash it, but these are just arguments people put forth, in favor of Bitcoin, that it's a good store of value. And is it really? It's hard to say. Like, maybe if you're in like Venezuela where there's super hyper inflation, yeah, probably it's probably pretty good. But if you're from if you're from a somewhat stable nation, let's put it, United States, most European nations, England, etc., And it's not a very good store of value in that regard, and it's not a very good currency because it's very slow. It's good for you and me, but it's not good for massive scale. And so one of the final arguments of Bitcoin was, hey, it's an uncorrelated asset. If the stock market goes down, there's nothing that correlates Bitcoin to the stock market. There is no like Apple made a bad phone and people started hating on the company and their stock went down, or like Blizzard banned some Chinese esports player because he was bashing China in the Hong Kong riots, right? And then Blizzard stock plummets because everybody starts to sell their stock because it's bad news, right? There really isn't that with Bitcoin. There might be some bad news from time to time with exchanges, etc., but I believe it's definitely somewhat correlated. Let's go with somewhat correlated to the stock market. And I was wondering if you guys feel the same. Put it down in the comments, etc. What do you guys feel about this? I feel it's pretty clear at the moment, especially with the recent one. It pretty much matches up exactly. But that's all I have for you guys today. Make sure you subscribe to the channel, like the video, all that good stuff. As usual, I'll see you guys next time.